Welcome to the Love Lab Podcast, a safe place to get real about sex. Whether you're a man, woman, single, or couple, this is the show for you.
We are your hosts, Kevin Anthony and Céline Remy, and we are here to guide you to go from good to amazing in the bedroom and beyond.
This is episode 181, and it is titled Introducing Roleplay to the Bedroom. So today, I'm the bad boy that Céline cannot resist.
So if you're not on the video, Kevin's wearing his glasses and leather jacket and going all in for this role playing. I'm going to make this episode short because I've got stuff to do. I've got a husband to do, obviously. So
That's right.
see how it's working. So,
all right, hold on. First I got to take this off. I can't see a thing through these glasses.
Well, let's just say that when it comes to role playing, as Kevin undresses, which is another fantasy of mine, let's keep going, keep rolling, keep moving. A little imagination, some humor, and that's really all you need in the bedroom to have fun, to play, and to keep the passion alive.
Yeah.
So,
I thank you for doing the intro today while I had to get out of my silly costume.
Well, you know.
Actually, it's not really silly. Those are things I actually own. They're not props, really.
Well, before we dive into today's content, we have a lot actually that we're going to cover. We're going to talk about the difference between role playing and fantasies. What do you do if your partner is not into it? What do you do if your partner freaks out? So many different things, some of our tips to role play in the bedroom. So it's going to be a comprehensive look at role playing, and hopefully it will inspire you because it can be fun when it's done properly. But first, let's give a big shout out to our sponsors, Power and Mastery. So if you want to join the secret club of men who are great in bed, then check out Power and Mastery at powerandmastery.com. It is the most complete sexual mastery training for men. Whether you want to have harder erections, last longer, or increase your sexual skills, there is something for you at powerandmastery.com. So go check it out right after this episode.
All right. So this is a fun topic, and it's an interesting topic. We've actually had people requesting not this specific topic, but similar things. And so we've never done it before. We thought, hey, now is a great time to do it. It can, however, be triggering for some people, and it can be controversial for some people too. So I think we're going to do a pretty good job of really going through it and making it accessible to everybody. It's not going to be triggering. It's not going to be controversial. Not that we have a problem with that, but what we want to do is we want to make it such that everybody would listen to this episode and go, it's worth trying, right? That is kind of the idea. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. No big deal. But
so we wanted to start with a definition of role playing versus fantasies. Like, what's the difference? Are they the same? Because sometimes they are used interchangeably, and really, it's a bit of a fine line when it comes to both. They can be somewhat similar, but they can be also different. Really, in role play, you are very present in the moment and what you are doing. While in fantasy, you tend to be more in your head, which often takes you away from the more present moment. I tend to see fantasy as kind of this place where people go to on that fantasy island, and they kind of over there on their own. And oftentimes women feel it when they make love with somebody who is stuck in his fantasy, and they go like, he's not really here with me. Well, when you're doing the role playing, most people are engaged within the act, and you are really present. You are like using each other's energy.
yeah, and that really is the difference, is that in the role play, you're really present and everything is happening physically right there. What we tend to see with couples is when somebody really loves the fantasy part of it, most of the fantasy is actually going on in their head. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is, maybe he's pretending to be somebody because, we're going to do a role play thing, or we're going to do some sort of fantasy thing. But most of the scene and most of what's happening is really just what he's imagining in his head. So, he's maybe going down on her, and he's imagining, or no, here's a better one. She's going down on him and he's imagining that there is a woman sitting on him that he is going down on. But that's all just happening in his head. And he's not verbalizing that. It's not part of the shared experience. And that's where we draw the line between the role play and the fantasy. We're not saying that one is necessarily wrong, although we do see that in the fantasy, the way that we've described fantasy, that can cause problems between the two people, because as you just said, Céline, the woman can instantly feel when you're not really present and you're off in fantasy land. Now, it does go both ways, because sometimes women get lost in fantasy land too. So we're not just saying this is a men's only problem. Neither of you should be lost in your head in fantasy land. You should both be very present and interacting with the other person. So that now the thing is, you could say, all right, so, oh, this is great. Your coworker is now whatever, like you can bring it in, you can still kind of have that, but it's got to be part of what the two of you are doing.
And we'll come back to how to do it really well, because there's a way to do role play in a way that enhances your relationship. And there's also a way of doing it where it could create some triggers. So we don't want you to do it the wrong way. Now, why would you want to role play? Well, it's pretty simple, really, right? It will spice things up. You start to use your imagination, you shift things, and you experience something new. And when you do something new and different, then suddenly you have that new energy. In relationship, they call it NRE, new relationship energy. That means that's this special quality of this new relationship. When you've been together for over 2 years, you usually don't have that NRE anymore. But doing things differently like this can bring up back some of those.
Yeah, and I want to make a distinction. You gave two things there at the same time. One is spice things up, and the second one is do something new and different. And the reason why I made them two different things rather than just one thing, even though they sound kind of like the same, is because spice something up may mean that you're taking it to another level that you wouldn't normally go to. Like, oh, we wouldn't normally go there, so you're going to do something that's sort of pushing your comfort zone, right? Whereas doing something new and different might just be something that's on the same level that you're used to, but it's just something different, right? And that's why I wanted to clarify, because you may be thinking we always do new and different things. So, but you might want to take it to the next level and really spice it up, or you might say, hey, I don't need to spice things up. Like, we're spicy enough, right? But you may say, but I still want to do something new and different. So that's why I kind of broke them up into the two different ones. But there's also yet another reason why you might want to role play.
Yeah, because it can help you to play out something that you don't actually want to do in real life, but that somehow turns you on. And that's, people have conflict with that about, well, I like this thing. Let's talk about like a schoolgirl and somebody older. Like, schoolgirl, it's kind of the classic fantasy, but if you're a schoolgirl, usually you're not at the age of sex and of having sex, really.
Right. So that would be wrong. And that's not something you want to do in real life.
But you could play it out in your role play and get that excitement about it.
Yeah. Now, I know that there probably are people that fantasize about it being an actual schoolgirl, but I have to say that honestly, that's wrong. sorry. We try not to make anybody wrong for their sexual desires. But if you're desiring sex with somebody who is that young, it's just flat out wrong. And we just have to call it what it is. However, you can still have that fantasy because it's not the age. Like, when I see a hot looking woman dressed up as a schoolgirl, I'm not thinking about her being an actual schoolgirl. What is the turn on? The turn on is the short skirt, the thigh highs, right? Like, it's not because, oh, she's so
like the
young,
pigtails.
Yeah, they're kind of cute. but the turn on really is the fact that she's wearing a sexy outfit. And that's perfectly fine. So you can do the schoolgirl fantasy thing. It's in every like novelty shop. There's that. As long as you're not imagining it being actually a young girl, because that's just not right. But there are other fantasies you might want to play out that you wouldn't really want in real life. So, for instance, I started this show with like the sunglasses and the motorcycle jacket, right? So, what I was trying to get across in that was like the classic bad boy fantasy, right?
He's going to take her, impose himself on her.
Right. But here's the reality is that there are aspects, and we've talked about this many times in the show. There are aspects of the bad boy that are appealing to women. There is no doubt. But at the end of the day, she doesn't really want an asshole. She doesn't want an asshole who's going to treat her like shit, cheat on her, leave her, whatever it is, that the bad boy always ends up doing in like every movie you've ever seen, right? But you can live out that bad boy fantasy through something like role play. And there's lots and lots of scenarios that you could come up with that are like that. They're things that, could be fun to do in role play that you really just don't want in real life. Like you just don't really want. It's harder to role play, say something like a threesome, but it is possible to do. And this is another area where a lot of times, the guy's like, why role play? Let's fucking do it, right? But a lot of times the woman's like, no. But she might be willing to role play it, however, because that's a place where she feels safe to do so. So, I don't need to give you any more examples. You can think of plenty more yourself. The idea is that it really is an opportunity for you to be able to do things in your sex life that you wouldn't actually want to happen in real life.
And we'll give you a few more ideas at the end too. I think if we have time, we'll throw in some ideas.
Yeah, we got a whole list.
But let's talk about how do you enroll your partner? I think the biggest challenge is that people feel embarrassed, shy about expressing themselves. What if my partner laughs, makes fun of me? What if they flat out say no? What if they judge me, think that I'm a weirdo? What if they abandon me after I share my heart's desires? These are valid fears. Now, we are going to assume that you have a relationship where you have good communication to start with, and that you have established a foundation in which you can be who you are without judgment, or as little as possible, because sometimes we still do judge other people, even our loved ones, so that you can feel free to express yourself. But the very, very first thing that you need to have in place, if that's not yet the case, is you have to declare your bedroom a judgment-free zone. And this is essential because when it comes to sexuality, you only grow from experimenting with new things, with trying out different things, with exploring beyond your comfort zone. And if you feel that you don't have that safe container for you to explore who you are, you're never going to be able to grow and morph into a better person and into having better sex that only comes from different experiences. So having that foundation as having a bedroom judgment-free zone is key. You can bring the judgments back into the kitchen for any other things, but when it comes to the bedroom, it's a judgment-free zone.
You shouldn't have too many judgments in your relationship to begin with, but yes, for sure, judgment-free zone. The next thing is to make sure. So this section is how do you enroll your partner, which is assuming that your partner may or may not be all that thrilled about this new idea, right? So one of the things you want to do is make sure that they know that you want this to be in addition to your sex life and your relationship, and not something that's lacking with them, right? Like, oh, well, you don't do this or you don't that or whatever it is.
Or that you're not going to give them what they currently have, and it's taking away from what they have. So for sure. Number 3, you realize that people often feel silly and ridiculous when they start role playing, right? That's people will start to giggle, or they break out of character, or they'll be like, oh, I shouldn't do it this way, or like this kind of doesn't work, So you got to push past that self-judgment, and it's crucial to getting to the fun stuff. To understand that it is normal that you might, break out of character or giggle or something, but try to move beyond that. And really try throwing yourself into the role as though you were on stage. Maybe you can even have a script that you have written. And this is why for a lot of people, it helps to have their hair done differently, makeup or clothing, wardrobe, whatever, to alter who they are so that they can step into character. Now, in order to role play, you don't need to have the costumes. I'm really not into costumes. Like I couldn't be bothered. But if we do any role play, we just pretend without, like, we're able to get into that without having to have the costumes. However, if you find that it's too difficult, then use those props.
Yeah, apparently I'm so much in the bad boy role today that my headphones keep making my hair stick up on the top of my head. If you're watching the video, I've like readjusted my headphones like 3 times because I keep getting this hair parts like a mohawk sticking up in the front. But aside from that, number one was a judgment-free zone, meaning don't judge your partner for the fact that they want to do this. And then number 3 really is don't judge yourself, right? Like allow yourself to just be free and not worry about, oh, I look ridiculous or whatever. It's all in good fun. Number 4 is reassure your partner that if it's not working, you will stop the role play. And that's kind of important because it comes back to making that safe space again. You're trying to enroll your partner. They may or may not be all that thrilled about this idea. And so they're, all right, we're going to try it. But what if I'm not liking it, right? You say, okay, great. Then we'll stop. And it's literally that simple.
And we'll come back into the nitty-gritty of the how-to in a little bit because I think it's essential. But here are some ideas too. You want to negotiate a role play or scenario that works for both of you. And again, we'll dive in more into that about, hey, what do I do if I don't like my partner, what my partner wants, right? But it's an essential part.
Yeah. And yeah, we will talk about this more later, but definitely make sure, like, because there's a big range of potential role play and fantasies, right? Everything from like super tame to just completely out, like way the fuck out there. If you're trying to enroll your partner, don't start with way the fuck out there. Just don't start with something easy.
Absolutely. And then remember that it's all about fun. When you are role playing, it's about fun. So don't get too lost into it. So I want to talk about, that one was really important because that comes up a lot when we work with couples, which is, what if I don't like what my partner wants? And we see that a lot when somebody has a desire or something, they might have voiced it and the other one first response was no. And then what happens is, let's say he suggested something, she said no right away. Then he started to internalize that, saying, oh, there must be something wrong with me, or I'll never get my needs met. And then she could be looking at him like, maybe he's perverted. Well, maybe he's going to cheat on me if I don't do that. Or like, no, I need to make sure that we still have the sex I want. So it can get really sticky there.
Yeah. I wanted to make a quick comment based on what you just said. I was working with a client not too long ago, and he was running into that a lot, where almost any suggestion he would make, it had nothing to do with role play, even, by the way, the default response from her would be no. It almost didn't matter what he said. It's just, hey, how about no? Well, what about no? No, right? I just kind of wanted to say, because this is something he and I had to work through, which is, if you're automatically getting a default response of no matter what it is that you're asking, there's something else underneath it. And that's the point I just wanted to make here is, if you're getting no's constantly, and sometimes the no's come before you even have a chance to fully express the idea or the ask that you have. If that's the case, then there's likely something else beneath that no, and you need to figure out what it is. So, I mean, that could be a whole show in and of itself. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I know that a lot of guys run into that, where they're just like, hey, honey, I thought maybe we got no.
Yeah, not fun. So that leads us to our sponsor ad. If you are a committed couple who's stuck in a rut and you're just going through the motion, you're getting a lot of no's in your relationship, maybe you're not having the sex you used to be, you feel like it's mechanical, there's no more spontaneity, and you don't want to be stuck there. You don't want to be an average couple. then Kevin and I would like to invite you to join our highly sexed Power Couple Platinum program. So if you give us 90 days, we will help you bring the passion back between the sheets and be synced up sexually so that you can thrive with more purpose and passion in life. So go to CelineRemy.com/passion to learn more about our program. We would love to help you. We'd love to work with you. We absolutely adore working with couples, and it is the right time right now to sign up and get a whole new relationship for 2022.
It now is absolutely the time. If you've heard us do this commercial in the past and you're like, it's 2022 now. Like, we've been through a hell of 2 years, and I know it's been rough on your relationship because it's been rough on everyone's relationship. Now is the time. It's a new year. We are moving in a positive direction. It is the time to make the change that you want to make, and we are here to help you.
So what if I don't like what my partner wants? You might be wondering, like, cool. Now, number one, let's start with what you need to do. It's not to say no. It's to say thank you so much for sharing. So it's very different, because the first reaction, your gut reaction, is to run the other direction or say no. But really, like, it took guts for your partner to share what they wanted, to open up their heart and to share this really precious, vulnerable side. So start by acknowledging the fact that they indeed shared something vulnerable. Thank them for trusting you enough, for holding dear that piece of information. And that will already set the tone to be very, very different. Imagine if you met with a thank you rather than a no when you share your deepest fantasies. Wow.
Yeah, the problem is no closes the door right away. And it's just like there's not even discussion at that point. Whereas saying, like, you may be feeling a no, but you can, rather than say no, you can be like, okay, thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about it.
Exactly. Which leads us to number 2, the discussion about, you want to be curious. How important is this fantasy to your partner? And you may want to ask questions like, is this a fantasy that you want to try in real life? Or is it just something you wanted to share this idea with me?
Yeah, now that's really important. I am so glad that you put that one on the list. And I'll tell you why. Because one of the fears that comes up a lot of the times with this role play is, this is a trial run for the real thing. This comes up a lot. Well, if we do that, then the next step is you're going to want to do the real thing. And that is not necessarily the case. So that's often the woman's fear, if she's the less adventurous as far as the role play, is like, oh shit, if we role play a threesome, the next thing is he's going to want an actual threesome. And she's like, no way, I don't want to go there. I don't even want to role play it, because then he's going to want to do it, right? It also goes the reverse way as well, in that, so there's the, I don't really want to do that in real life. And then there's the, what if she really does want to do that in real life, right? So the flip side that happens for the man sometimes is like, if we role play the threesome and that involves another guy, she might actually decide that the role play was so good she wants to try the real thing, and that'll scare a lot of people too. So that's why it's so important to have this on here, is make it clear from the beginning. Is this just something you want to do in fantasy, or is this something that you would actually like to do in real life? And be upfront about it. Because if you're like, hey, you know what? I want to try this in role play because I eventually do want it in real life. You got to set that up front, so then they can decide, I absolutely do not want to go there in real life, so I don't even want to do this particular role play.
Then you can ask things too, like, is this a fantasy that you want me to be a part of? Or is that something you want to explore on your own? Because again, if you're freaking out about the fantasy and maybe they just wanted to share that, but then do it on their own, then that's very different. Also understand, like, what levels of involvement were you hoping to get from me?
Yeah, what elements of this will be real and what elements of this will be simulated?
It's like it's really to start to have a curious mind and to ask some of the good question. How central is this fantasy to your sexual expression and fulfillment? Because if it might not be something you like, but you understand that it is central to your partner's fulfillment, you might be willing to find a way to make it work much more than it's like, well, it just would be something nice, that something I've been thinking about. And it's like, well, then just go buy a Porsche, like whatever that is. But these questions will help you to understand that. And also be willing to ask the question, what do you think it would be like for you if you never got to play this fantasy? Like, go there with your partner, and feel the pain. Feel your partner's pain if that's something that would be really, really sad for them. And then, are you willing to let this your beloved live with that, or do you want to help? So maybe rewind and listen to all the questions again, because they were very good. Take some good notes and have that discussion.
Yeah, those questions are fantastic for starting a discussion about getting into role play. I mean, that's a framework for you right there.
Absolutely. And then what you want to do is also to learn and educate yourself. Maybe you didn't know about that fantasy. Maybe you want to go on. I think sometimes forums are like rabbit holes for like you have everything, but research things, educate yourself, see what could be possible. And then last but not least, is there a part of the fantasy that you are into? Because oftentimes there's a big scenario and sometimes we are no to parts of it, but there are places that we are yes to. And this is one of the very important things too, as Kevin was mentioning, rather than being a no right away, is like, what can I be a yes to? And that will change how you interact with one another, because there is always something that we can be open to. And that way, it feels like you're meeting at least, if not halfway, partway, your partner. And if everybody is making an effort, then everyone gets to get the benefits.
All right. So next, what if my partner finds my fantasy freaky?
Ooh.
Because this could potentially happen. I would say that if you have been honest and upfront in your relationship from day one about who you are and the types of things that you're into and that you like, you probably will not run into this scenario. However, we have seen over and over and over again that when couples come to us and we start talking about these types of things, there's one partner over there like deer in headlights going like, wait, what? They like what? They're into what?
It can happen too if you got together really young and then you're still together, congratulations, but you've evolved and grown and you kind of forgot to update each other.
Right. But that's the whole point, right? Is if you've had that communication and that level all along, there shouldn't be any real freaky surprises.
Mm-hmm.
However,
it can happen.
It can happen. It does happen. And you're right. It's totally possible that all of a sudden one day somebody just decides they want something freakier than they've ever wanted before in their life. And so that can happen. So then the question is, what do you do about it? Well, first thing is, don't have any judgment, right? We've said this numerous times throughout this episode, but you got to let go of the judgment.
There's a saying, don't yuck somebody else's yum.
Right, exactly.
And in the bedroom, it's important. It really is. Be willing to accept your partner. This is what unconditional love is. Just love them for who they are with all their kinks.
Yeah, and keep in mind, as we've also said numerous times throughout this episode, is that just because they want it in fantasy doesn't mean they want it in real life. So before you freak out like, oh my God, you disgusting pervert, like ask that question, right? Is this something that you really are into, or is it just something you want to fantasize about? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are tons of women who fantasize about being raped.
Yeah, that stays in the fantasy.
But I don't actually know any women who really want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, that it's an essential question. Somebody comes to you with a really freaky, fantasy. Before you freak out yourself, find out, is this just a fantasy or is this something that you want in real life?
And here's the thing, like, no matter how adventurous or conventional your sex life is, if both partners don't agree with doing something, then it stops being fun, right? And it can kind of tip into something else. So it's important to keep the communication line open, and also understand that a lot of couples have different erotic worlds that don't match. We don't match on everything all the time, but you can still have a successful relationship even if your partner has a fantasy that you really don't get turned on by. So what you want to shift your focus from, hey, how can I enjoy this kink, to accepting that it's okay to not like something, okay, that you just don't like what your partner likes, and to not try to force yourself into it, or to try to force your partner to become somebody else. And what you need is an honest conversation.
Imagine that.
Don't wait until you're having sex, because it's the worst. But honesty is more important than sugarcoating it, because ultimately what honesty does is that it brings you closer, it builds the intimacy, and that's really what we want. And once you feel this connection and this intimacy, you feel the passion too.
Well said.
All right, let's get into our 7 steps to role playing like a pro. Ho ho.
Sounds like an ebook.
Maybe we will write that.
All right, number 1. This one's actually really important. It's something we haven't talked about at all yet, really, in this episode, which is figure out what you want and like, and don't censor yourself. So you can't really have great role play if you don't know what it is you like or you want.
Mm-hmm. And it requires some soul searching, some time to look within, and again, like accepting who you are, not judging, and giving yourself permission to want what you want.
It's like one of those funny things, right? Where you're like, hey, let's role play tonight. Let's do something totally different. Okay, what should we role play about? I don't know. got any ideas?
Let's watch a movie then.
Yeah, screw it. Let's watch a movie. Right. So it's important. Like, figure, like, what do you want? What do you like? What is something different that you've never done? And know those answers ahead of time.
Yes, it's essential. Number 2, share it, because it's one thing to keep it for yourself, but if you want to have the fun and the play, you gotta have a playmate, and you have to share it.
Playmates are fun.
Number 3, settle on the scenario. And I really like this one. I'm going again for this one because I wanted to make sure I was going to add some of my concept and ideas behind that. That discussion piece is so essential, because the scenario can make the whole difference. And taking the time to create the scene, to say, okay, how do you want to be called? Is that your same name? What are we playing? Are we, okay, this is this relationship. This is what you want to do. What do you need from me? Or you need me to tell you to do this or that at some point? Like, having all the details mapped out will allow you to get into character and really enjoy the fantasy.
Mm-hmm. And it's important that you pre-negotiate that.
Yes.
So that weird things don't pop up in the middle that completely kill the role play. Right? Like, well, and I know it sounds like, yeah, of course, duh. But the reality is that, you know, you'll create a whole scenario in your head of what this role play is going to look like, but you only communicated 50% of that to your partner. And then in the middle of the role play, you like basically go off script, pre-negotiated script. And then somebody goes, whoa, 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 whoa. And then boom, totally kills the moment in the mood. So you really want to make sure that you settle on a scenario and you negotiate the details of that scenario ahead of time. Okay, number 4, and this is part of that, establish some limits and boundaries. So this is part of that negotiation.
It is, but I also felt like they were different, because you got to create the whole scenario, and then you've got to create other limits or boundaries. Like, they are separate.
Yeah. So you can determine what the scenario is going to be,
the storyline,
and you can communicate all the different parts so there are no surprises. But then, like, one part may be, you know, I spank you, right? But the boundary is, I can only spank you so hard. Right. So that you're right. They are different in a sense that even if you knew all the details, you might be like, well, and then I'm going to do this to you. And then you're doing it. And they're like, whoa, that's way over the line. You're like, but I told you I was going to do it. Yeah, but you didn't say how you were going to do it. So that's where the limits and boundaries come in.
Number 5, set the scene. And that once you have all of these taken care of, like you've discussed the scenario, the boundaries, the limits, then you can get into the scene creation. So you can do a costume, but you don't have to. But it's more about like, okay, we're just going to like shake up the energy. And then as soon as we reconnect, we are going to be into our characters.
Which leads us to number 6, which is to stay in character and don't apologize. This is one of the things that absolutely ruins role play. Like, okay, so now I'm going to be the bad boy, right? And I'm going to be like, all right, bitch, like do this. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you a bitch. Like, no, I didn't really mean that. Like, I'm just in character, right? Like,
oh, so bad.
Completely ruins it. If you have pre-negotiated to be in certain characters, just stay in the character. Now, look, something goes off the rails, for sure, break character. But you don't have to stick with it. Like, something happens and she's like, oh, that really didn't work well. Like, break character. Are you okay? Fine. But in general, don't do the whole like, oh, sorry.
Pro tip, have a safe word. Like, this is something we can all learn from BDSM, from people who do like scenes for a living or like a lot of that, is literally decide of a word. Like, if you say that word, and it's usually
muskrat, Jack, muskrat,
banana, like something that you wouldn't say, but it could be just the colors: red, yellow meaning I'm about to get triggered. The red is like, we got to stop. This will help you again to have that safety element and know that, okay, if we say red, we have to stop and pull out of the game.
Pull out of the game.
Yes.
Figuratively or literally.
Number 7, don't forget to have fun, as Kevin is just having right now. So, of course, we cannot finish this episode without leaving you with some good ideas and role play scenario that you could do. Now, we've got a lot. I don't even know if we're going to cover them all, but I think one thing that you can remember when it comes to role playing, most of the time, what people are looking for is a power dynamic, and is often something that's slightly forbidden or not really the thing you would do, like, having sex with your boss or being at work, like stuff like that. So there's the element of that forbiddenness as well.
So yeah, we don't need to go into a lot of detail on each one, but why don't we just go like, I go one, you go one, and we'll just go back and forth as we go through the list, because this is kind of a long list. But number 1, real estate agent and potential buyer. So you show up to buy the house, and it turns out it's a really sexy real estate agent, and it's a really hot house, and you can't help but have sex with her.
A stripper and its client.
Oh, that's a classic.
I know. Some are more boring than others.
Flight attendant and a guest in the airplane bathroom.
Personal trainer and client.
Ooh, sports coach and athlete.
Football player and fan or cheerleader.
Oh yeah, definitely cheerleader. Cheerleader all the way. Wait, what? Okay, sure. It's been the holidays. You can go with this one. Santa Claus and a naughty girl. That one's borderline for me, honestly. I don't know how that got on this list, but okay, go for it. Who's the hoe?
Doctor, nurse, and patient.
Oh, that's a classic. Princess and Prince Charming, sure.
Painter and muse.
Ooh, yeah, that is a good one. You're posing nude for the artist. You could even try to actually sketch something. It'll be a good laugh when you're done, unless you're an artist, in which case you could really do it.
We might try this one out.
Yeah, that's true. You draw well. Construction work.
No, I was the muse. You were the drawer, the artist.
Oh, so you want to have a good laugh?
Yes,
then.
I do.
Okay, all right, we'll try it. Construction worker and pedestrian.
The masseuse and the client.
Mm-hmm. Butler or maid and boss.
The repairman.
French maid.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The repairman and the homeowner.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a classic. There's been a lot of porn movies made like that. Model and photographer, very similar to the muse and painter.
Delivery man and homeowner. Okay. That's like, we're really getting into porn things.
Well, it is basically role playing all of that porn. Let's see.
Teacher and schoolgirl.
Yeah.
Police officer and criminal. I'm telling you, like, it's like porn after porn.
Right. Your favorite movie. Yeah. You could totally act out a scene from your favorite movie.
Oh, I like that. The fireman and the damsel in distress.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Mm.
And then Strangers in a Bar. What was that movie? There's a movie we watched where it started out like that. It was two people picking each other up in a bar, and it was like done really convincingly. And then it turns out they've been married for a long time and got a bunch of kids, and we're just role playing. It was hysterical.
Yeah, but I hope this gave you some good ideas. And also, be creative with the scenarios, because it could literally be like, if you choose the masseuse and the client, it could be like something that turns you on is that, I don't know, the client faints and then the masseuse has to like give a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Like, I don't know, like you can get very creative with different things beyond just, oh, you're massaging.
It's a lot of room
happy
for
ending.
creativity in there.
Yes. And again, it's about letting your creativity be free, because that will allow your sexual energy to flow. And if there's only one thing that you're taking away from today's short episode, is that role playing can help you touch this energy within yourself again. And it's a safe way to play with your partner and to create some novelty, some excitement with something old.
All right. So your homework then is to try out role playing at least once and see how it goes. And come back and let us know in the comments how it went for you.
Or email us.
Or email us. We would love to know how this worked for you. All right, everybody. That's all the time we have for this episode, and we will see you next week. We hope you liked this episode of the Love Lab podcast. If you enjoy this show, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends.
And for more free, exclusive content, join us in the Passion Vault at CelineRemy.com/vault. That's CelineRemy.com/vault.
Thanks for listening.
And remember, you're amazing.